I'm Solomia Witvitska, CTSN. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch the broadcast, and be sure to comment on what you found most interesting. Here are a few of today's topics. Will Trump provide Tomahawks to the country?
We may choose not to do this, or we may go ahead and do it.
How soon will American missiles be able to strengthen Ukraine's military power? The occupiers continue to hunt civilians with drones in Zaporizhzhia. There, 4 people have been killed and 2 wounded. In Preobrazhenka in the morning, a shell struck a couple who were driving in their car. 2 more men were killed in the village of Novopavlivka. There, a drone struck a pickup truck the previous evening. During the attack, 2 sisters were also wounded. One of them is only 17 years old. In Chernihiv, 5 people were injured as a result of a Lancet strike on an infrastructure facility. And a Russian drone attacked a store in Semenivka. A man died at the scene and a woman is in moderate condition. 2 people were killed in Donetsk region. In Siversk, the enemy dropped a guided aerial bomb and killed a person. Another person was killed in Yurivka. The bomb hit a house. There is significant destruction in Kostyantynivka. 4 apartment buildings and a school were damaged. In the morning, the Russians struck the Kyivsky district of Kharkiv. A dormitory of an educational institution was hit. And in Kupiansk, a woman was killed. Another man was injured. In the Izium district, a civilian was also injured by a drone strike. There is also a victim in Sumy. 3 people were wounded in the Sumy district as well. The Russians struck a private yard with a drone. A man and a woman who had come from Sumy to feed the dogs were injured in the ambush by the drone, which was lying in wait in the bushes. The head of the Stitkivka district was also hit. In the morning, the Russians shelled a shop in Bilozerka, Kherson region. The shop assistant and an elderly woman suffered blast injuries. The occupiers also attacked residential neighborhoods in Kherson with artillery. 2 civilians were wounded. Both are under medical supervision. During the attack, the Russians damaged residential buildings in the Korabelny and Dnipro districts of the city.
I was in the hallway. We were getting ready to go to the store. I was getting dressed, and then there was a bang. I just couldn't... And then it happened a second time. I finished getting dressed. Here, I called Liggy for the second time. She was crying. They told me to come to them. I couldn't... You see, I'm not really... I got scared because it was just like that. It happens so often now.
All the windows. First of all, they all blew out. We used to have a wall here. That wall collapsed over there. The garage is destroyed too. The shed, of course, is destroyed. That's it. Everything is like that now. You can come in. There were 4 at first. Well, it was close here. And then there were some bigger ones. They were kind of scattered. Bigger ones came after. And now again. And I think first in the other village. Here.
Their artillery fire helps the infantry hold the front line. In the Sumy region, there isn't even a few hours in a row when Ukrainian artillerymen are left without work, especially when fog settles over the local forests. Because that's the time when the Russians try to approach in small groups right up close. And that's when the artillerymen of the 71st Jäger Brigade have to work with surgical precision. Next, a report from the border area by TSN correspondent Alexander Motorny. And you'll also see a QR code on your screens. This is a fundraiser for a pickup truck for the soldiers of the 71st Brigade. Our defenders need vehicles, as they say yesterday already, because the enemy is constantly hunting for them. Equipment breaks down. So watch the story and immediately support its heroes to the fullest.
This is his body armor, and right next to it, just in case, is his shotgun. He is an airborne artilleryman and the commander of a howitzer crew from the 31st Separate Jäger Brigade. His call sign is Serko. He started the full-scale war as a mortarman, but fate had other plans.
So, did you end up on the 120mm mortar right after being an electrician? Right away. And then I switched to the D-30 howitzer.
But rifles and shotguns aren't his main tools of the trade. But the war in the border region of Sumy changed things. Now, Serko says they don't take a single step without their rifles, even in the thickest forest.
There are a lot of drones flying around. This isn't the same war as when it first started. There weren't so many drones back then, there just weren't.
There's an almost constant buzzing of drones in the sky, along with the steady sound of gunfire and explosions from heavy artillery shells.
They, just like the artillery, have plenty of drones too. Let's just say the intensity, both the artillery and the drones, it's something historic.
The occupiers' artillery mostly operates from across the border. In the Sumy region supporting the Russian infantry, they only fire at isolated, well-camouflaged enemy mortars. And the Russian glide bombs haven't gone anywhere.
And as before, constantly the glide bombs keep coming, they keep coming all the time. At both the drone operators and the mortar crews.
Oh, are these your shrapnel pieces? That's what greeted us.
The enemy forces, for the most part, have all their heavy artillery positioned directly across the border. There are a few guns already on our territory, but mostly all the long-range ones, the ones they use to fire at us, are located across the border.
So did you also try to shoot it down as it was flying?
I told you.
332. Yeah.
Right now in the Sumy region, they are mostly firing at enemy infantry.
Ready to record now?
258.
Go ahead, I'm ready.
Shot. In.
We primarily and mainly target the enemy infantry forces. The enemy often tries to gather themselves there and move around the area, and well, then regroup completely. And accordingly at mortars that we detect.
There are days like that. Sometimes it even happens that for several days in a row, if the forests in the north are covered by thick fog, the artillerymen of the 71st Jäger Brigade almost never stop working. Honestly, there is time here to have some tea, but when there's work, there's work. The guys say that today hasn't been a particularly intense day. This morning they fired about half a dozen shells, but literally just now, as we arrived at the position, the work began. And now more than 10 shells have already been fired across the Muscovite border.
Only
In Sumy region, their crew has fired at the Muscovites with not just 100, but several hundred shells. Overall, since they've been working together, the loader, a 48-year-old D-30 operator, admits that he's crossed the mark of 10,000 shots.
Probably more than 10,000, maybe even more. And you managed that? Yes. In what period of time? In 2.5 hours.
But they don't stop, especially if there's a need to support their infantry comrades with fire.
And they keep moving. Our reconnaissance provides the information and we keep working. A bang, everything's ready.
Go immediately.
They typically came in formidable groups of 10 to 20 determined people, and as they steadily advanced, a significant number, specifically 8 to 10 of them, would actively engage in intense close combat. We successfully stopped their relentless advance, and on some crucial fronts we even managed to decisively push them back.
The same task, pushing the occupiers back beyond the borders, is being carried out around the clock by the artillerymen and everyone else, including the 71st Jäger Brigade. Just now.
Boom.
They fight, they admit it. The Jäger paratroopers fight exclusively for their own, so that life can go on.
To return to
A normal life, the way we used to live.
You can congratulate me, I just had a baby girl.
That's great news, right on time.
And what will you name her?
Harvara,
What?
Harvara. Reporting from the border area in Sumy region, Alexander Motorny, Oleksiy Osavchuk, and Serhiy Shportilo. TSN 1+1.
The heating season in Ukraine will begin, as always, as soon as the average air temperature stays below 8 degrees for more than 3 days. The Ministry of Energy has refuted information that the heat will be turned on starting November 1st. That statement referred to a document for natural gas suppliers. For users, everything remains unchanged. The main guideline is the weather, not the dates on the calendar. And as in previous years, the decision about the heating season is made by local self-government bodies. By the way, we have a diverse climate across the entire territory according to meteorologists' forecasts for the coming weeks. In the north of the country, temperatures are already close to zero with frosts, while in the south, the weather is still quite warm. Therefore, the heating season starts on different dates. In the capital and some other regions, the radiators have been warm for over a week already in schools, kindergartens, and social institutions. First, a Shahed drone struck, then the walls collapsed, and now the residents may be left without a shelter in their building. All of this is the story of the long-suffering 5-story building in Kyiv's Otradny district, a neighborhood where Russian warheads fly in during almost every massive attack on Kyiv. During the shelling, the residents of the partially destroyed building usually took shelter in the basement, but this weekend, a supposed new owner of the premises appeared in their yard, intending to change the locks on the doors. However, the locals did not let him do this, saying that if he did, they would have nowhere to hide. TSN correspondent Irina Kondrachuk looked into the situation.
The situation where someone buys a shelter during a full-scale war in a ruined building that has been hit by Russian Shaheds and just the day before the concrete floors collapsed is at the very least strange, isn't it? Here's what the residents of this building have to say about it.
The neighbors said that a new owner of the basement came and wants to install locks on the doors and let in the residents of this building. Yes, there are a lot. There are mothers with small children and some have 2 or even 3 kids. They set it up. There are these small rooms in the basement.
The day before, a scandal broke out between the alleged new owner of this shelter, who did not provide any documents because he said he didn't have them yet, and the residents of this building. The latter called the police. The police explained that, according to the documents, this premises was actually privately owned by 2 people who are currently not in Kyiv. And one of them took out a loan using this square footage as collateral, but did not repay it, so the bank seized the premises and put it up for auction, where it was purchased by a new owner, who in the future plans to invest in another part of the basement.
When there's an air raid alert, we are truly afraid to go to the shelter. And yet, despite our fears, we absolutely have to go down to the basement. Well, unfortunately, we can't go to the basement anymore. We must quickly gather together in the basement.
Why can't you go to the basement?
Because it has already been sold.
So the residents of this building and the neighboring ones, whole families with children and pets, all used to run to a space that had stood empty for years. During the war, they equipped it themselves. And only now did they find out whether it even exists. And this year, it simply disappeared from the shelter map.
It says here that our shelter is located in school number 22, that they removed it from the list of shelters.
Why was it removed?
As a result of the inspection that was carried out. The basement premises at the address on Adnes Avenue were deemed not recommended for use as a shelter.
The local authorities are responsible for marking shelters on the map, and the Solomyansky district administration is already aware of this incident. They have promised to try to negotiate with the new owner so that residents of this building will still be allowed into the shelter during air raids.
This shelter saves us because we don't have to run very far. In my opinion, we will still be able to defend this. We will find different options. People with more authority in this matter will help us. And in the end, it will turn out not to be true. And we won't have to look for another place because there simply isn't another option.
Irina Kondrachuk, Yevhen Lotvinenko, and Maxim Osmirko.
The European Union will work on allocating 100 million euros for Ukraine to get through this winter. This was announced during her visit to Kyiv by the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Callas. According to the official, the funds will be used for generators, shelters and equipment for the cold season. For his part, Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Andriy Sybiha, handed over a list of our winter needs following Russian attacks on the energy infrastructure. Callas also reported that Brussels has decided to allocate about 10 million euros for a special tribunal for the aggressor countries and 6 million for the victims of Kremlin war crimes. This refers to children and those who have suffered from sexual crimes. The parties also discussed security issues separately. The Ukrainian side is ready to share its experience with Western partners in combating Russian drones. This was stated by Andriy Sybiha at a joint press conference. Journalists also asked Callas how the European Union views the transfer of American Tomahawks to Ukraine. The diplomat replied that Brussels welcomes all tools that make Ukraine stronger and Russia weaker. She also added that, in her opinion, time is no longer on the Kremlin side.
Perhaps time was once on Russia's side, but now it is shifting to Ukraine's. Russia has rejected any attempts at a quick peace, so we are preparing for a long road ahead. The European Union is strengthening Ukraine's combat capabilities with 2 billion euros for drones. And as long as Russia's war continues, we must use any available revenues to financially support Ukraine. European leaders are discussing a reparations loan from frozen Russian assets. Moscow should pay for this war, not European taxpayers.
I shared a specific list of needs to strengthen Ukraine's resilience ahead of the winter period, and we discussed in detail the ways and timelines for providing the necessary equipment. This is now a priority for Ukrainian diplomacy, and we are grateful to the European Union for its consistent and comprehensive support. We also clearly see the European Union's need for Ukrainian experience and our acquired combat expertise in countering such threats. And the Ukrainian side is ready to share this experience.
Donald Trump, after the end of the conflict in Gaza, is urging his special envoy Steve Witkoff to resolve the issue with Russia. The American president was delivering a speech in the Israeli parliament. Notably, in his address, Trump admitted that Witkoff had gone to previous negotiations with Putin unprepared. He knew little about Russia, the Kremlin leader, or politics in general. But the US president praised him for the fact that instead of the planned 20 minutes, the special envoy spoke with Putin for as long as 5 hours. And once again, Trump claimed that he had resolved 8 wars in 8 months. He also declared the war in Gaza to be over. The US president is currently on a visit to Israel, where the latest hostages released by the Hamas group are being welcomed. 20 Israelis had been held captive since militants attacked Israel 2 years ago. What is known about them? And is the war between Israel and Hamas really coming to an end? TSN correspondent Katerina Fedorchenko will tell us more.
For 2 years, they hadn't seen their loved ones, the relatives of the Israeli captives. At last, they have the chance to speak with them via video call. A mother greets her son.
You're coming home. You are my life. You're coming home.
A wife, a husband, and a father. Here, Dad has arrived. He has returned from Gaza. And today we will be together with him. Like you see, Dad. These are the scenes of Inav's first meeting with her son Matan. For 2 years, the mother protested in the streets, met with officials and presidents so that they would continue negotiations about the hostages, and finally, her son is home.
My little heart, how your sisters and your fiancé are waiting to see you. And your dog Nooni?
Is he still alive?
Of course, they returned him to me after 4 days.
20 people. The last hostages who survived after being captured by Hamas militants in October 2023. At that time, during the attack on Israeli cities, 1,200 people were killed and 251 people were taken captive. Some of the hostages were exchanged for Palestinian prisoners and some were freed by the military. The last 2 groups, 7 and 13 people. Today they were handed over to the Red Cross, which then returned them to Israel. In these shots, you can see how Hamas previously handed over hostages. They gathered these people and staged a show. In particular, they gave the captives gift bags with their own symbols and souvenirs and forced them to smile for the camera. This time, Israel insisted that the handover take place quietly, without any rallies. The bodies of 28 deceased are to be handed over privately. Experts still need to identify them, as there have been cases in the past when militants returned the bodies of other people. In return, the Israelis will transfer nearly 2,000 people to Gaza. This includes 250 prisoners from Israeli jails and 1,700 people arrested during the operation in the Gaza Strip. Previously, Palestinians celebrated loudly when their people returned. However, this time the Israel Defense Forces insist that the prisoners be met by their relatives in private, not publicly. The hostages are being released as part of a ceasefire agreement reached with the involvement of President Shah's administration. Donald Trump has already arrived in Israel. His plans include speaking in parliament and meeting with the families of the hostages. This is a great honor for me, a wonderful and beautiful day. A new beginning. That's what the head of the White House wrote in the Knesset's guest book. And he answered affirmatively when asked whether the war in Gaza could be considered officially over. Later, the US president will head to Egypt for a summit with dozens of other leaders, both from Arab countries and Europe. For example, the President of France and the British Prime Minister have already met with Mahmoud Abbas, the leader of Palestine, which Paris and London officially recognized last month. It is expected that a peace plan, which the Trump administration helped to coordinate, will be signed in Egypt. Other details of the process will also be discussed at the meeting. For instance, about half of the Gaza Strip will remain under Israeli control for an indefinite period, and the territory will be governed by a transitional Palestinian committee under the supervision of the Trump-led Peace Council. President Shah promises to establish it very quickly. The Israeli Prime Minister will not fly to Egypt despite Trump's invitation, officially because of a religious holiday. Katerina Fedorchenko, TSN 1+1.
He's going to ask Putin if he wants the Tomahawks to fly towards Russia. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, commented on whether he intends to supply Ukraine with long-range American missiles. The day before, on Saturday and Sunday, he had good phone conversations with the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. They discussed arms supplies, Trump told journalists aboard Air Force One. According to him, Ukraine wants to receive additional Patriot air defense systems and Tomahawk missiles. As for the latter, the US president has not yet made a decision, and his choice will depend on whether Putin agrees to a settlement of the war before the Tomahawks are aimed at Russia. The American leader did not specify any time frames.
Perhaps I will have to talk to Russia about this with complete frankness. I told this to President Zelensky, because Tomahawks are a new step in aggression. You understand this perfectly well.
Will you talk to Putin about the Tomahawks first?
I can say, look, if the war doesn't end, I'll give them Tomahawks. I can say that. Tomahawks are extraordinary weapons, very destructive. And frankly, Russia doesn't need this, they don't need it. Maybe that's exactly what I'll say, if the war doesn't end. We may choose not to do this, or we may go ahead and do it, but it's appropriate to raise this issue. I want the war to end.
Donald Trump is hosting Volodymyr Zelensky this Friday in Washington. And this visit has already been confirmed to TSN by Ukraine's ambassador to the US, Olga Stefanishina, as well as by sources in the White House. This is according to Reuters. Meanwhile, a Ukrainian delegation has already departed for the United States. The team is headed by Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko and the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, Rostislav Momyarov. And among the main topics of the meetings are strengthening Ukraine's air defense and increasing its strike capabilities, support for the energy sector ahead of the coming winter, as well as new sanctions against Russia. Notably, over the past 2 days, there have been active contacts between the Ukrainian and American presidents. Zelensky and Trump had as many as 2 phone conversations. The main topic of these calls was US military aid to Ukraine, including the possibility of transferring Tomahawk missiles.